In 1990 is when nearly 2/3 of Nevada voters approved a ballot measure to ratify into state law the right to a legal abortion within 24 weeks of pregnancy. This right can only be repealed or changed with another direct vote of the people. So can we expect abortion rights to be a major campaign talking point and influence voting in Nevada's midterm elections? Here to discuss that and more surrounding state politics are Jessica Hill, political reporter for the Las Vegas Sun, and Jacob Solis, who covers politics and higher education for the Nevada Independent. Thank you both for being here. Jessica, in an article that you wrote, you quoted Nevada Democratic Representative Susie Lee. This was prior to Roe versus Wade being overturned, and she had said Nevada will be a sanctuary state for abortions, and the increase in women coming here for an abortion will overburden an already overburdened healthcare system. Have you heard any response to that concern from Republicans?
Honestly, we haven't heard a whole lot from Republicans on that side of things. Most of the time, most of the Republicans that we've talked to have mentioned how, we'll go with what Nevadans want. They recognize the statute and they recognize that abortion is legal here. They haven't so much commented on the specifics and the nitty-gritty about the healthcare system.
Have either of you noticed an appetite from the conservative or the Republican side to try and have another voter referendum that would change or repeal the law currently in place in our state?
I would categorize it maybe as murmurings about another referendum. The thing is that it's a risk, that you risk mobilizing the base who is motivated to vote on something like abortion as an issue. And it costs money. You can't simply run a referendum, that you need to get the signatures to get it on the ballot, and then you need to mount a campaign to get it passed. And abortion is a tricky issue, and it's something that's difficult to message even for those who are anti-abortion and for those who are pro-abortion. So it's kind of a third rail that everyone is a little wary about touching. And I think that's why that you've seen that kind of trepidatious messaging from Republicans on this.
Has it been like that?
Yeah, many Republicans, I think I agree with you with that. I know Congressman Mark Amodei was saying he knows that Nevadans support abortion here, and he doesn't really seem to have any plans to really push anything forward. He might support or vote to approve certain measures to restrict abortion. However, he understands that Nevadans overwhelmingly support Roe v. Wade and abortion access.
So do they take that same mindset into a potential federal ban on abortion, which would supersede Nevada law? Any talks that you've heard of that?
A lot of the Republicans that I've talked to have been pretty quiet about really making any sort of promise on that. I know that Adam Laxalt has mentioned, I think to the Review Journal, that he would support a national ban or some sort of referendum on a national level, I believe. Is that correct?
That's a race you're covering closely.
Yeah, at least on a state level, Adam Laxalt has signaled interest in another referendum to at least look at the Nevada law. But what's interesting, I think, about abortion specifically in the way that the Supreme Court ruled is that it's been made into a states' rights issue, right? Essentially, it should be up to the states to decide what they want to do. And that sort of butts against this Republican push for a national abortion ban. And so they have to balance those two messages, and I think that it's not quite clear what the Republicans as a party would want to do on that.
So then with that in mind, I would ask you about Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, who's running against Adam Laxalt, who was quoted as saying that race is going to determine the future of women's reproductive rights in Nevada and across the country. How accurate is that statement?
In a way, it is, because certainly the Republicans have made their stance on reproductive issues abundantly clear. It may be at a point, though, that the decision has been made by the Supreme Court, right? There's no putting the genie back in the bottle here. And so to an extent, I think what matters is, like you say, that possible national ban on abortion that could come from Congress, and whether the Supreme Court would strike that down, presumably not, based on the current composition. So in that sense, I think that's what she's referring to. But really, where we are right now, the landscape is state by state.
How hard do you expect Nevada politicians to discuss abortion in the lead up to the midterms?
I think the Democrats in Nevada are really going going to use the abortion topic leading up to November. I don't know how big of a role it'll play come November. Right now it's on the minds of everybody. But in just a few months, how big of an issue will it be? There was a poll from, I think it was USA Today and Suffolk University that basically said, this was before Roe v. Wade was overturned, but they asked, the biggest issues that are important to them, and the economy was still number one. And I think it was like 7 in 10 respondents said that the Roe v. Wade decision would not affect their decision whether or not to vote in November.
So if Democrats are going to push that issue, does it make them appear that they're not listening to the issues that voters are actually talking about with the economy, with inflation, with high gas prices? Is there a risk there?
I think the real risk is that if Democrats want to message on abortion, they have to do something about it in Congress. And if that doesn't happen, how mobilizing of an issue is it for voters who might already be upset that Democrats aren't delivering when they control the levers of power already?
Right. There are a lot of criticisms that the Democrats had so many opportunities since the 70s to codify Roe v. Wade, and they just never maybe thought that it would be an issue, that it would never get overturned. But a lot of people are criticizing them for not doing anything in the interim.
I want to move on to the Nevada Republican Party and its chairman, Michael McDonald. What has been going on with him? A cell phone seized by the FBI, a subpoena by the House Select Committee for January 6th. What is the latest?
So we don't know exactly like the latest,
right.
But we do know that, yes.
Because he's not talking
He's
much.
not talking to us. I've gone to the Republican Party headquarters and he has not been there. He won't answer any emails or phone calls. But he and James DeGraff and Reed were both subpoenaed by the Justice Department. And before this, I think it was in January, they were subpoenaed and asked to come into the January 6th committee, and they have not complied, along with many other Republicans who have not complied. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that and how long it'll take to get more news about that.
What do you believe they're looking for on that cell phone?
Well, I think they're looking for evidence that there was a coordinated effort around these sort of fake electors that they were trying to use to justify that Trump was legally the president post the 2020 election. If they can find, I think, that level of coordination from maybe state-level Republicans and national-level Republicans, I would assume that that's what they're looking for, to mount some sort of broader case that it was, again, a coordinated effort.
And the last time we had you on was after the primaries, and we talked about how interesting it is that when Joey Gilbert, who ran for the Republican primary for governor, lost and is claiming election fraud still to this day, Michael McDonald of his party saying, we don't want to hear those claims, or we don't think there was any fraud. Now that this comes around and he's being, questioned, what kind of light does it paint on the Republican Party in Nevada?
Yeah, I think some could look at it and see a little bit of irony. When Joey Gilbert came out with those claims, Michael McDonald said he was disappointed and he doesn't understand where they're coming from, and his job is to unite the Republican Party. However, just a couple of years ago, one could argue that he was not uniting the Republican Party when there was a split between those who believed in election fraud and those who didn't. And so now that's just coming back to light again with these further investigations into his activities on January 6th and leading up to that with the fake elector scheme.
Do we know what comes next for Michael McDonald?
That's an excellent question. I mean, the Republican Party in Nevada, I think, was diminished sort of post-2014. It reached that apex in those elections. And then in 2016, 2018, and 2020, I think has struggled to win elections in Nevada. I think that's the most relevant part of this thing for Michael McDonald, is that he's trying to win elections here, and the Republican Party so far hasn't done that. In the broader scheme, does the January 6th committee continue to go after this fake elector scheme? Most likely. And in that context, I think we really have no idea what might happen next.
But the Republican Party appears pretty strong in Nevada at the moment, right?
That is true, yes.
Mm-hmm. 2022 is a different year, yeah.
And Chairman McDonald has been here for a long time. There have been other, complaints about him that haven't gotten anywhere. So who's to say if he would go anywhere at this point?
And back to Joey Gilbert, the latest with him and his recount that he wants. What is going on?
Yes, he's going to pay, I think, about $190,000 to recount in all 17 counties in Nevada. He is claiming that there's proof of election fraud and they will undercover it. There was a live stream just a couple of days ago with him and a kind of election denier named Robert Beatles, and they're saying that they know that the recount won't end well for them, because they're using the same voting machines that took place during the election. They understand that they'll lose the recount. However, the next step will be to go to court and to counter those results.
So paying for a recount that he already thinks is not going to work.
Right.
That is interesting.
And it's by 26,000 votes that he lost.
Right, 11 percentage points. Is that battle worth it? We will find out, and perhaps the attorney from Reno will be mounting a lawsuit, as you mentioned. Both of you, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for joining us for Nevada Week. For any of the resources that we discussed here, go to our website, vegaspbs.org/Nevada Week, and you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at VegasPBS.